To be human is to have pain. It's inevitable. But to suffer is a choice. And I think that's where I'm saying, okay, so if we can get to a recovery part, that helps the client.
Yeah. No, that makes a lot of sense. So thank you, Cath, for... Oh, you got a little frog there. I'm glad you got some fluids. So thanks for explaining the acronym that's around the workshop, and maybe that gives us a sense of what we might visit tonight. And I wonder, like, where do you want to start? You were saying something about like understanding learning and how we learn. Is that? So
where this came from is a book that we were just discussing, which we're hopefully going to put out in the resource list, which came from a psychologist called Daniel Kahneman. And he talks about the brain having two systems. So you have system one, which is an automatic, it's the most primitive part of the brain, and it's very, very automatic, and it has what some people might think are irrational beliefs. So why we do things, and I could give you an example of. So I think that a nice one that I saw around this was that a caveman is walking along with his son, and along comes a tiger, and he pays no attention to the tiger, and the tiger eats his son. So the second time he's out walking, he sees a tiger, and he goes, "I know what happened last time. I'm going to walk over this way." He's with his other child at this point, and a bird flies over, and his child drops dead, and he now goes, "Tigers are dangerous, birds are dangerous," and makes links that don't seem to make sense, but actually when you take them apart, they do make sense because of the way that the brain works using what's called system 2. And that's a slightly higher, more cognitive area, and the kind of processes that we go through in thinking leads us to make beliefs, biases, judgments, prejudices, which all influence how system 1 then continues to react in the future.
Yeah. So that was a great book, wasn't it? The first, well, I don't think it's his first book, but that Thinking Fast and Slow, those two systems, the one that jumps to a conclusion and the other one that can hold those cognitive biases. Is that,
Yes. Yeah. So what I did was I was kind of thinking about this, thinking, oh, that's system 1, that's system 2, and quite often when I was working with the children, I think, oh, that's like an automatic response. So that could be X, Y, Z if I was looking at psychology, and that could be behaviourists saying that, or that could be cognitive therapists saying that, or actually that could be neuroscience saying that. So I went off and had a look at some neuroscience, and I went right the way back to another cognitive psychologist called Gazzaniga, and I think that's how you say his name, who was doing a lot of work around what's known as split brain patients. So these are patients who have had the middle part of their brain, the corpus callosum, severed, and it's usually because they've been epileptic. And he did some kind of experiments, he did do experiments, and what he did was he would give one side of the brain a stimulus. So he would show something to the right hand side, and the left hand side, because of the way that the optic nerve works, he would wave, and the right hand side would then try and interpret what the left hand side was doing, and the left hand side would then say, well, actually I waved because I saw somebody that I knew. So what was happening was the brain was trying to make sense of information coming via, for example, the left hand side or the right hand side, and it not being able to pass through the brain as it normally did. And I was really, really interested in kind of how this worked with the brain, and I've been reading around a lot of going back to the neuroplasticity kind of stuff. So I'm thinking of Ledoux, Dodge, or Doige. I'm not actually sure how you say his name because it's got an A in it. And I've kind of been looking at what actually happens when the brain decides that it's going to do things differently to how we've expected things to be. And this again came up to the system 1, system 2, and me going, okay, I need to take steps back and work out whether I'm making automatic assumptions or actually this is what's happening in the brain. And I think that's where I've got to now is kind of making an understanding about the processes that happen at the lower level, the subcortical levels around the feelings that we have and automatic responses, and then what happens at the higher levels. So, as I said earlier, I'm going to deconstruct the human being tonight, and I'm going to make us people who have no free will, who are very deterministic, and and things happen to us and we respond, or we respond because of a certain stimulus, and so on.